we'll talk about the regular career another day, but yeah, I decided we'll just we'll start the ARCA series. So heading in, we'll take the whole event. Yeah, did not have a successful working on my Iowa setup for Xfinity. It's one of them heat things where I got it damn near perfect and stupid fast. I took two tenths off my fastest time there, and get in a race and out to lunch. This is what I'm going to run. I'm not going to run practice. Qualify. I'm not going to be very fast because this is set up for group qualifying. But I need like a palette cleaner to get me into super speedway mode. Here's third. I think my tape's too high. This is what we'll do here. I don't normally set a car up for qualifying. Been having, you know, such a hard time getting the race setups down. I don't even, you know, cloud my mind with stuff, because you can do really, you know, weird things in a qualifying setup that you just can't do in a race setup. And those things don't typically work in a race. So try to keep myself until I feel comfortable enough in a race setup. I don't even worry about qualifying. I had a 47. I don't know, it seems very slow to me. We're at Daytona, right? Yeah. Smoother you can be, faster you will go. And the bottom line is the fastest way around. That's more like it. I got the pole? Damn. I don't think I've ever done that in at a super speedway. Wow. That's kind of what I normally run. So, okay. We're good. I don't know why they're lower. We did do the full competition deal and whatnot, so I don't know. We'll go with it. All discombobulated. That's why. Did the qualifying. a little bit off. As usual, everything's bothering me. So we got the tape up. If I take the tape, like, click down, I can stay in fourth gear longer. But fourth gear is close to what they run, but fourth gear is simply a restart gear. Third gear is my race gear. Well, I thought it would be more exciting, but we have no stages. It's one 60-lap run. Yeah, I never get the pole at these things. I've gotten my setups good enough where you know, I can get like top 20. One of the series I know I can get top 10. That might have been Xfinity. That's not like my best setup either. That's a really good setup. Chose to run it today. I have one with it before, both Daytona and Talladega. I use the same setups. Yeah, we're good. Now, if I could get the tire wear like this for my Iowa setup, that would be awesome. See here, you know, you're going really fast, so these waves or bumps, and as you go up and down them, you know, the car moves around. And, it can be difficult to hold, you know, a particular line. I kind of like let it drift out a little bit, and then I try to catch it, you know, where it'll just, you know, we get halfway in the turn, and then, you know, the rest will take me out. It's harder to do in 1 and 2. 3 and 4 seems to be a lot easier, where I can basically just almost get up. Like I'm driving in real life on the highway, turn the wheel a certain way and keep it there. You notice I got a mile an hour more speed because I was extra smooth. But time also has to do with how close and how many guys are behind you. On the backstretch, we'll take a look here. So I think it's a mile an hour speed limit. See, they're not behind me, so I'm slowing down. It doesn't look like it, but I am slowing down the backstretch. And then when he pulls back behind me, I'm getting a little bit of a push from him, but not a whole lot. As you can see, we lost a mile an hour. And, you know, lap time is the average speed all around the track. Really good time there. When you're racing in a league, typically everybody is, you know, nose to tail with you. I tune everything to be in the lead. So this could be, you know, league practice for me. I used to run a higher, lower gear than this, but I realized a couple things. We all know Earnhardt, you know, Mr. Restrictor Plate, Mr. Super Speedway, I guess call him today. So, are no restrictor plates. Well, not like he had to deal with, but he always liked a lower gear. You know, back in the day, when they were doing over 200, you know, 7, 8, 900, about 1,000 horsepower, I guess, at the end of those cars. But say about 900 horsepower. You had a choice of either running like a 305 rear end, because all four gears were the same for everybody in the transmission, either a Jericho transmission or a Richmond Super T10, which are those two manual transmissions that can handle that kind of horsepower and torque. And you had a choice of either a 305 or a 310 rear end. And I, you know, ran Sims with both, you know, with the old gearing and, you know, the old 90s cars, the 80s cars. And I always preferred the little higher gear, you know, the 305 instead of the 310. Just personal preference. I felt I got a better draft, better suck up, better push. You know, I could do more with the draft that way. And since your speed has little to do with how much horsepower you have, or how, you know, it has more to do with how free your engine is. It's one of the quirks of super speedway racing that they eventually found out was using a lower gear, especially with the lower revving engine. Using a lower gear, actually, when you get up near the red line, it tends to slow the engine down, where you actually lose speed, you lose horsepower, speed. So basically, you know, like when you tune, I know a lot of guys tune gearing differently. I know a lot of guys don't even worry about gearing; they put a gear in and stuff. But if you really get into it, you know, tune your car to be about 500 RPMs lower than whatever the red line is. In truck and Xfinity engines are the same, 8750, and then, you know, the cup car is 9,000. And if you tune your, you know, at the end of this longest straightaway, you can't do it at super speedway because lesser horsepower, but you know, at all those other tracks, you get it, you see where it red lines at the end, and then you back it off until you're right 500 horsepower by yourself, 500 RPMs lower by yourself, so that 8250, a little over 8,000, and they tune that way because in the draft you're going to be a little faster, so you don't want to hit that red line at a like a track like Auto Club, you know. You want to be below it. Now, if you notice mile-and-a-half tracks, sometimes I do hit the red line, and that's by design. I can back it off a little bit, but sometimes you back it off a little bit and it tightens the car up through turns too much. It tends to, you know, do different things. So it becomes a very specific thing. But as a general rule, 500 RPMs below red line by yourself. So in the race, you got, you know, your engine isn't holding you back. Another thing is, I know guys who hate the red line. Absolutely hate red line. So what do? You make the gear higher, right? So it doesn't hit the red line at the end of the straightaway. And then you got to hit the brake harder because you got less engine braking or less gear braking. So it's kind of like it depends, you know. The brakes on this game suck, so a lot of my short track setups and such, you know, you see me on the rev limiter. So when I let off the gas, I'm already over, you know, kind of like hitting the max revs. So as soon as I let off the gas, the car's going to slow down a lot. So I don't have to rely just on the brakes for slowing the car down and making a turn. Now, you know, that can work really well at tracks like Bristol, Martinsville. But you get into the intermediate tracks, you get like Richmond, works well in the turn one. But sometimes, you know, but I've actually lightened it up a little bit because it was a little too much. Because if you take a nice line through there, you know, the proper race line, because everybody dives to the inside, ends up kind of, you know, driving it like you're going to diamond the corner, but it's not the fast way around. But if you take the normal wide entry into turn one, and you have, you know, a little bit higher gear, then you don't slow down as much, so you get through that turn faster. And getting through that turn faster makes you faster down the backstretch and faster in the turn three. So you can pick up a lot of speed just by how you drive a corner of a track. A little too tight. We can make that. So it'll be 2 laps less. A little too tight. So basically the only thing we can do here is this. Just want a 1% wear on the right rear. Actually slows you down. Once you get up to this point, it doesn't hurt you as much. But for some reason, right on the start in this game, especially before the start-finish line, you can just kill all your momentum if you touch somebody. It's a very strange thing. And the way they do this game, and it's worse in Heat 5, is it's almost impossible if you lose the draft to keep up. Typically, you know, about 2/10 slower than the pack. You know, you got enough laps, you're going to go a lap down. There's nothing you can do about it. Oop. You see how it killed my momentum there? I mean, best example, but it did. I got past them, but it took me like, whoa, 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 whoa. And that's not because I loosened it up. I don't think I put my steering wheel shock adjustment in. Oh, we'll deal with it. I ran it for like 3 years, so. It just makes it a little bit easier to oversteer in the turns and the pack and hit that curve. That was the biggest complaint on the setup. And before I knew what to, you know, how to adjust stuff. And that shocks, nobody knows about shocks. I use my real world experience. I got a guide, you know, for circle track racing. Helps me. Yeah, we're messy. I usually use the brake, but in a strange mood. I'm usually off by this time. I'm hungry, but it's a short race, only 60 laps. figured I'd get it going, the video up. Yep. And if you notice, the steering wheel is, you know, I don't know why people, I always look, you know, I'd love to see you guys in the cockpit. I know most of you, I guess, can't drive that way. I can't drive any other way to be accurate. But, I have the steering wheel up. I have it. I didn't used to. But, in the early wheels, you'd have to calibrate them a fair amount. And they go out of calibration sometimes. So I realized if I put the wheel up and I see, you know, I'm holding it dead straight in my hands and it's showing a little bit left or right, then I knew I had to recalibrate the wheel. Typically, with this setup, it would take me about 7-8 laps to get back to the lead, starting dead last. I missed a couple opportunities. Yeah, it's kind of a little bit tight. That's not normal. I know a lot of guys run a tight setup, but it's not supposed to be tight. But I'm reluctant. See, if I had my my shock setting right, I'd take a couple of rounds of it out if I wanted to. Since that's an issue, I can make it too loose. See how it comes, nose starts to come down? Yeah. I'll fix that. What kind of strategy? We're at 25 laps in, we got 36 laps of gas. So that's 61, right? Where do we go in? I wonder if we'll have another caution. Now, a lot of people would say, oh, you know, you know, you don't want it too loose. The looser you are and can drive it and make the moves you need, the faster you're going to go at Daytona and Talladega. The least amount of rolling resistance, the least amount of friction is what's going to make you fast. I mean, there's other things you can do, setup-wise, you know. And, you know, a lot of times people do like, oh, they do this, and it doesn't do anything. Do that, and it doesn't seem to do anything. Do something else, and then it doesn't seem to do anything. But if you do all those little things together, and then together they can do something. And that's how I built this setup. And this setup is a direct relation to the first setups I ever built back in the 90s. And funny enough, the Xfinity car, the speeds the Xfinity car runs are very close to what the Cup cars ran back in the mid to late 90s. Caution. So why do we get now? It's going to go out. Everybody's pitting, so. Take a little pressure off the right front there. I always pick up at least 2 laps of gas. Super speedways. I don't know why. Pretty much every other track I lose gas. I don't want to hit them. Be close to them. Now I can hit them. Reason to getting down in the bottom lane. Hard on the brakes there. So even though I got a harder accelerating gear, slows you down to a certain point. And it's aero, you know? You can't see aero. I mean, you kind of can if you know what to look for, but it's just like, you know, we had like the last series games, NASCAR 13, 14, 15, like I've spoken about in the past. You can set the heights for each corner of the car. And there's a way to set them, it's a little wide. Yeah. There's a way to set them to help you go faster through the turns. Which, you know, discovering that. And that's the game, those are the games that also had in-race track bar adjustments like the rest of the world. Ooh, a lot of cautions. I need to pit. I don't want to pit. We're good. Wow, they're really pulling away fast. This happens once in a while with the AI. I noticed. It's just like, it's like you messed up. I didn't mess up. They just kind of like fly past you. But that's okay. We'll get him back. So yeah, so aero, you know, how the car feels behind another car, next to another car, sandwiched front and back, left and right. You know, the game does give you that kind of feedback. The cars do handle differently. Some of the worst things that you deal with in these games, and I believe it's a little bit worse in Heat 5 because the tracks have a little bit less grip overall, is car comes up behind you, like here, like I'm drafting up on a guy, and I hit him. I don't hit him, but I come up on him entering a turn like fast. Mostly not at super speedways, but other tracks. Ooh. Yeah, that's pretty good. Yeah, you get a guy behind you, entering a turn, and he brakes much later than you do. Maybe he's trying to hit you or something, but he doesn't hit you. But he just zooms in on your tail end really fast, especially in the Gen 6 Cup cars, the older Cup cars. It can get you loose. It can get you loose and entering the turn there. And that happened a number of times. Certain tracks going underneath you, like at Kansas, late in the run, you're already a little bit loose anyway usually. So if somebody dives under you out of the turn and stays close, like doesn't dive away, but like stays right on your door, that can get you loose too. And the bad thing about it, it's kind of a dumb thing to do because it makes the guy outside, if you're doing it, it makes the guy outside of you spin into you. So now, most of the time you both end up wrecking or causing a caution and so on and so forth. So I'm not saying don't do it. It's just like don't be so close when you do stuff like that. You know, leave yourself more room. Aerodynamically, it makes sense to not be next to the guy when you're trying to pass him, so you can stay outside of his aero wake from the side. You know, it's weird if you've ever been on the highway with a semi truck. These cars because they're doing 200 miles an hour, close to it, at that speed, the air creates this huge wake, like a big ship in the ocean. And you can be inside that wake, inside or outside of the car. And then, you know, sharing, you know, just like you were behind them, and if you stay real close to them. But what happens is, if you're real close to the guy, the air doesn't go down the side of his car and get on the spoiler like it should. So what ends up happening is he loses grip. When he loses grip, when he's already loose, now you just wreck him. And that's half of Earnhardt's passes in the 90s. They're basically that, except he knew who could hold on to it. You know, and he did wreck a few people doing that. Not even touching them. You're not to touch them. Just drive a certain way. On the super speedways, one of the things that I can't stand is when you get guys that can't hold line. If they're wiggling, they're going to do a little wiggle, like they're like this. Now, when you get that, what happens is the air wake behind you is kind of all over the place, and it washes on your nose and off your nose. I have been, you know, literally knocked under the yellow line and knocked into the next lane without being touched, just, you know, not lag, just from the air. It can really mess you up, you know. Sometimes, you know, I'm in a race and a mile and a half super speedway, and the guys are just all over the place in the turn in front of me, and my car wants to pull one way, then the other, like you know, like the wind is blowing sideways on it, and it makes it really, really hard to, you know, to race. So I always prefer guys that, you know, can hold their line and, you know, kind of like know what they're doing, because it affects you. You know, if you're racing with guys, and you know, everybody's got to learn, but if you're racing with guys that, you know, you get into that situation, don't make adjustments based on what you're feeling in those situations, because your car can be fine. You know, setup can be fine. It's just the aero, you know, stuff that you're feeling is what's going on. So, and I don't know, everybody, you know, trashes these games. I'm telling you, you know, from back in the day, and I've been on iRacing. I don't like iRacing. The cars have a weird feel to them. They don't feel like real cars. Not that these cars feel like real cars, but they do a lot more to me. You know, I use force feedback on a wheel, which is critical to get the feel that I want. I'm using force feedback since the late 90s, since they started offering it. I want to say like 99, maybe even 2000. And force feedback, at first I hated it, but then I'm like, you know, I'm driving my car and the race car I drove for a bit. Steering is heavy, and the steering's heavy for a reason. So you can't, you know, like kind of do really bad, you know, quick steering adjustments, because you just wreck yourself, especially, you know, at D speeds. Anybody's driven 100 miles an hour, though, you don't have to turn the steering wheel much at all compared to 55. And that's the same thing here, and that's probably the best, you know, at least street race. It's probably the best training that I've had to deal with stuff like this is, you know, I haven't been 200 miles an hour, but evidently I have been about 160, and the steering wheel is totally different. You know, it's not like driving your car on the street. It's very responsive. You're covering, you know, like here we're covering almost football field's distance in a second, and that's a lot. It's 300 feet, right? 300 feet on your block, man, you could do tons of stuff in that time. But here it's like flashes by. And, you know, if you're on the game a lot, or you're used to sim racing or racing, you know, everything slows down. So you think you have so much more time than you do in actuality, and you don't. So you can't get tricked, you know, like here I am, and, you know, say, I don't know, lap car decides to take a crap in front of me and I got to avoid him. I have to be cognizant in my head how much I can move the steering wheel, how I can, you know, how I can get it, you know, like oh shit. That's about as fast as you can go, left to right, without wrecking yourself. And it goes faster left than it does right. And when you go right, there's a whole kind of different physics that happens, because you have an asymmetrical setup. A setup that is designed only to turn left. That's why it's harder to go right than it is to go left. If you notice, I had to turn it back a little bit because I was going to go over the double yellow line. And you feel it the most, I guess, at these tracks, you know, going 200 miles an hour max speed. But it applies at the short tracks too, you know. I was watching MRL Richmond race last night, and, you know, I'm in there and I'm like, I'm yelling at in my head, I'm yelling at my friend. You know, he ended up winning the race, but he was making some mistakes, and I'm like, there's one thing he was doing is, if he was on, I would tell him, is he says he watches these videos. You know who you are, Brandon. If you gave a wider entry into the turns when he was chasing down the leader and in the lead, when he wasn't being pressured, probably would have been able to maintain a little bit faster speed, you know, kind of thing. And I was like, you know, widen the turns, don't cut them so close, because again, when you cut them too close, now you got the car angled too much. I don't know, I can't really explain it. Like, you know, it's like if you got a rectangle, right, and you're running on the outside of the rectangle, and you come down to the corner, and you go to cut the corner, and you just cut that corner off like you're snipping it with a scissor. Now you get your car heading full speed at an angle, at like a 45-degree angle at the wall on the short chute kind of straightaway, like Indianapolis. And you cut it too much. So you lose speed making the turn, and then now you're all out of position, or out of adjustment, or out of alignment with the fastest way around the track. You know, if you follow the tire marks on the track, not these skid marks, you don't really see them at Daytona and Talladega of any significance. But at all the other tracks you do. See, like here, you see how it's all dark down here? This is where everybody runs. See how the track got dark? This is the groove, right? They're running up, I'm running down. When you're in a league race, you're running down here. Because the setups are set up so that you can run full speed and lose the least amount of speed in the turns down here. Well, that's the goal anyway. There we go. We got 9 laps to go. I ain't kidding. This is the proper way to run a race like this. You don't need to pit. Don't need tires. Don't need nothing. Now watch. I'll pull away from them on this restart. And this is the only second restart on these same tires. Look at that. So why did they leave me? Huh? I don't know. Game part. But yes. So you definitely want to you know, be aware of these things, because just following the groove around the track. The other thing I do, which a lot of people like laugh at, I don't know, this game does not give you enough tools. And one of the best tools for figuring out how to be faster at a track, or how to run track properly, is in practice. You have the practice line. It's in your settings. You can turn it off, but it's a very valuable tool. Formula One teams use stuff like that, where it's basically when you can be full out with your setup, because the computer knows how fast you can and can't go. Think about that for a second. So when the line is green, you can be full on the gas. When the line is green, you can be full on the gas. Now, when you have, you know, get into the turns and stuff, you can follow it. I mean, one of my goals when I'm trying to, you know, tune on a setup and get it faster is I can be in the red and still be full on the gas. And especially if you're exiting a turn, you know, like middle off, you can get on the gas a little bit earlier, get the speed up, and still make the turn, you know, and staying in the groove without hitting the wall or looking like, you know, you're leaving the bar at 3 a.m. in the morning, then we're good to go. And if you can do that for a whole run, where you could run that hard and that fast, and, you know, have that advantage, now you got a killer setup. But it's also important to know what speeds you need to be running, you know? My first season, I don't think I told anybody this, but my first season, we kind of started a season before, the year before, and we interrupted it, and I got running into an Xfinity league, and was contending for the championship, and lost that to my buddy Trey. That was fun. Messed up pit stop, which, you know, can happen, but your whole season comes down to that one moment. But, you know, it was good. I had a great time, learned a lot, got a couple of wins. And then we went into the MRL first full season. And my highest finish was in a cup car at Kansas, second. And we get in there, and I don't know how fast everybody is, but I started. I won the Xfinity Daytona race, because, you know, super speed race. I always wanted to do it super speed race. I would have won the truck race, but I got wrecked out of that. And then cup race was rough. Cup race in that series, beginning of the years, the Daytona 500 is always real rough and hard. But, you know, I had a win, you know, my first official win was that Daytona race. You can see it on the YouTube channel under wins. White flag. I'm sitting there driving with one hand, just so you know, talking to you guys like we're driving, you know, to go out to dinner or something. But I didn't know how slow I was compared to everybody else. The first race I'd actually run, I kept getting wrecked, unfortunately, and I finished 5 laps down, but I wasn't that slow. But I couldn't tell because I was 5 laps down. You know, the game doesn't give you any of those tools that you need. So as the season went on, I realized, you know, I'm close. I just need to pick up a little bit more, and I worked on it for the playoffs, as the playoffs were coming. And we start off the season really good. Yeah, it's probably gonna be boring. And then when I realized, you know, what time I had to run, I was like, okay. And then whenever we go back to a track that I ran really good at or knew I could win, and then I was, you know, was beaten by somebody, and I just couldn't stay with them or lose them the last half of the run or whatever the situation was. And I go back and I try to figure out, okay, what time do I need to be running? You know, like a track like this, you run the same speed the whole thing. It's all graph dependent. So, but you know, you go to like Iowa, right? I can start with low 23 in Xfinity. But what's the slowest that I gotta be to be faster than everybody else? What's that number? You know, 23.0, right, is awesome. 23.2 is fine, but at the beginning of the race, you know, that's okay. But everybody falls off. So it used to be in the first season, it was 1.5 seconds from your fastest starting lap, fresh tires and full tank of gas, to right the lap before you pit. And then the second season, it went down to 1.2 seconds. And then it just got faster and faster. And some tracks, it kind of flatlined, where they stayed the same. And then other tracks, I know there's tracks that I have set up that whatever I'm fast at, and I'm not slow, I'm half a second is all I fall off. I have a few tracks like that now. And I try to make all the tracks, that's when I'm saying I want to make the setup faster at the end, you know, down the backside of the fuel run. That's what I'm talking about. You know, if I lose a half a second to halfway, I don't want to lose any more than that. If I lose 0.6 to halfway, I don't want to lose any more than that. You know, different tracks, a little different, but for the most part, it's a good, you know, it's a good rule of thumb. Because the faster you can be, the last half of the fuel run, which is when all the guys that loosen their cars up too much are sliding around and they can't get on the gas and they're just, you know, hanging on for dear life, and you're like Harry Gant, high, wide, and handsome. Just, you know, picking your nose with one hand on the wheel while everybody's falling further and further back and you're going on to victory. You know, that's the goal of every, you know, race car driver. And it's tough. It's not easy, you know. Like my setups are good. I'd give you any of my setups to go and, you know, if they improve where you are. But I also drive a certain way, and I learned that for some of the tracks, and that's not a setup thing, that's the track. Like Darlington is probably the best example of that. Is Darlington drives, you got to drive Darlington totally different. Both ends are different, kind of like Texas, but it's smaller, so the turns are tighter. There's a lot less room. You know, it used to be a one-groove track for like 30 years. It technically still is in some parts. and it has glitches in this game. So figuring out where the glitches are, figuring out how to drive fast and miss the glitches, because you'd have the fastest car on the track, 2 laps to go, you hit the wrong glitch, and now you're wrecked, and you're 20th, and somebody else is winning the race. You know, so there's a lot, but it's simple. It's a lot of work, but it's a simple process. It's fun laps. That's why I run these races. You know, I'm not currently in a league, but I'm keeping myself sharp. You know, and I'm working on stuff, trying to figure stuff out. And league-wise, we don't know what's going to happen next year. The multiplayer part of it and the servers. But, you know, I got my offline thing, you know. And that'll stay with me as long as the games run. So I'm cool with that. I'm much happier. I'm not the same person I was 5 years ago. What I deal with medically is terrible. I wish I'm nobody, my worst enemies. But I'm dealing with it. Oh, this is different. Okay. So Atlanta will be race 2. And we'll get to 82 laps. Season standings. I've never run one of these on Heat 4, at least not more than a couple races. I just don't remember these screens at all. Wow. Cool. So we're leading the points. Won the first race. There's no playoffs. It's just I don't think there's playoffs, but it's just straight points. So as long as I stay on top of the points, I should get the championship at the end. Anyway, thank you for watching. Please like, share, subscribe, comment, ask me questions, and we'll see you next time.